Welcome to the Health Revolution, the show that leads you to a life of vibrant well-being. In a world full of noisy health trends, we bring you clarity through a sea of fads. We reveal the science behind the strategies that truly work. We explore physical strength, emotional resilience, and mental mastery, the keys to an enriched life. See inspiring interviews with the champions who've conquered life's health challenges. Are you ready to unlock your potential to live with vitality and purpose? Then join the Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, health and fitness expert, speaker, and a mom who understands. Let's embark on this transformative quest together. If you want to change the game, it all starts now. Welcome, everybody. You are watching The Health Revolution, and we're excited that you're joining us today. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison. No matter which way you're tuning into us, please do not forget to hit the subscribe button. We want to stay connected to you. Also, at the corner of your screen, there is a tab for show episode notes. Be mindful of that because there's some important information about today's episode. And we want to welcome all returning viewers as well as new viewers. Our goal is to have the powerful conversations of elevating the physical strength of the human body, the emotional resilience, and the mental mastery, that fortitude that allows us to have optimal life. And today's episode is all about disempowered no more, how to break free from any cycles that are holding us back that have anything to do with the trauma that is keeping us from growth, and how we can embrace healing no matter what has happened in our life. Our guest today is someone who I'm excited to talk to because she has gone through quite the journey, and she is sharing the insights of her professional and then her personal growth. And first, we're going to take a look at this. Let's get to know her. Meet Ellen Busch. Once silenced by trauma, now a voice for transformation. After breaking free from abuse and reclaiming her identity, Ellen became a certified life coach and the author of Disempowered, a raw, powerful book about breaking cycles and healing from the inside out. Her story is proof that no matter how lost we may feel, our comeback is always possible. Today, we will learn what it takes to rise, reclaim, and rewrite our story. Ellen Busch, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
I'm excited about our conversation. So I'm curious, can you take us back to the point where everything had changed, where healing was necessary for you to really break through the cycles that you were going through?
Absolutely. I reached what I would call the surrender point. And I've heard this talked a lot about in the recovery community. I just reached a point where I turned myself over to a higher power because everything I was doing to try and fix my life wasn't working.
And when you talk about that, can you get specific? What kind of path were you on? And at one point in time that there was a fork in the road for you?
Sure. So I had recently escaped, and I mean escaped, from my ex-husband, or soon-to-be ex-husband, and I was completely traumatized. So much so that I was driving through red lights and stop signs, and I knew I needed help. I didn't know quite what to do, but I just, like I said, looked up to the sky and just asked for help from a higher power. And that was the beginning. And once I had that connection, I knew things were going to start to get better. And I started to feel better instantly, but there was a lot of work ahead. And I was committed to doing that work because I was never going to get back into that type of situation again. I knew I had to take a long, hard look at myself in order to prevent that type of situation.
Can you describe what it was like in the beginning? Because I'm going to assume that it wasn't something that was hurtful to you, that your marriage maybe in the beginning looked like it was going to be happily ever after. And can you take us through the points in which you got the feeling that maybe that that this wasn't a healthy relationship.
Yes, but one of the things I'll preface my answer with is that being with a narcissistic partner is very confusing, and it is that way intentionally by them. There's a lot of gaslighting, there's a lot of control and manipulation. I thought the problem was me, and I was a committed woman. I was committed to my marriage. And he actually used that against me. I tried to do everything I could to make the marriage work, including giving up everything that made me me. And that's a terrible thing because your identity starts to slip away. And to the narcissistic partner, it's a kind of a game. And that's part of the tragedy. It's not really a marriage.
How did you know that you were in, or at one point, was it that you determined, that you kind of concluded in your mind that he was a narcissist, and that there were tendencies that was not going to help the marriage, and that it was,
Sure.
actually pulling apart the marriage?
You know, the loudest um, or most obvious answer to that is when I challenged him, when I called him on his stuff, um, he physically assaulted me. So it, I would like viewers to know that if challenging a narcissist is very, very dangerous. So just be mindful of that. Um, and I think it had been seething in my subconscious for a very long time. And fortunately, when I was in college, I had a very healthy relationship with a wonderful man. It ended up not working out over the long term, which is fine, but it was a healthy relationship. And I remembered how it felt to look at a man and see that he loved me every time he looked at me. And I looked at my ex-husband and looked him in the eyes, and I didn't see any love. And all I saw was cold black eyes looking at me. And I was chilled. I knew I was in trouble.
How long were you married?
6 years. And
And
then
what gave
the divorce took another year. So, yeah.
what gave you the courage? What was the turning point for you where it was maybe an aha moment, or where it was undeniably the choice to leave? What helped you have that first turning point?
I woke up at around 5 o'clock in the morning in December of 2012, and my subconscious was just screaming at me. I mean, it woke me up out of a dead sleep. And the message from my subconscious was, Ellen, you've got to get out. You've got to get out now. This marriage is never going to be what you thought it was going to be and what you deserve. You have to get out.
And when you decided that, were there steps that you took for this to come to fruition, so that you weren't going to feel maybe helpless, or feel like you didn't have the tools to help you? Were there certain things that you did that helped you really follow through and leave the marriage?
Well, I was absolutely certain that I needed to get out. So there was no question in my mind. And I called my parents and asked for help. And they were absolutely there for me. And my mother insisted that I go speak to an attorney. Probably one of the best things she ever said to me. And I secretly met with an attorney. And that attorney scared the hell out of me. She woke me up. I didn't understand how much danger I was in, especially because we had already had an incident of violence. 70% of women in this country who are killed by an intimate partner are killed the day they try and leave. And one of the things she said to me was, do not announce that you're leaving. Take what you want and go. Just go, and go as soon as possible. And I walked out of that meeting shaking, really frightened. And I did exactly that. I planned an exit strategy. I hid, and shipped some things to my parents' house, some important documents and things like that. Um, but other than that, when it came time to leave, I took a little bit of clothes. I took my dogs when he went to work, and I just got out and I left. And it was one of the most terrifying days of my life.
And when you left and you kept moving forward,
Mhm.
what allowed you to continue to trust the process? And and again, you mentioned that this was pretty terrifying. Again, this is almost like you're going into the unknown.
Mhm.
What helped keep you going?
I knew I deserved a better life. I didn't I wasn't going to settle for living in misery, and I also knew that if I didn't get out, the marriage would probably kill me. And I don't mean necessarily in a violent act, but I mean in stress, getting sick, heart attack, stroke, cancer, any stress related disease. And I just wasn't going to accept that.
And then as you created a new chapter in your life moving forward, how did you know that you wanted to take a step beyond and use your experience to further your what you were doing now, becoming a certified life coach? How did you take the steps to get to that point?
Well, I spent many years working on my healing process, and at, there was a point I reached where I realized I had just survived something really incredible, something that a lot of people don't survive. And I put it in the context of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. And the last part of the hero's journey is the hero returns home to their tribe and brings their knowledge and experience to other people. And I felt that sense of responsibility inside my body. It is incredibly powerful, and it is with me every day. And it is one of my drivers. It is one of my purposes here in life. I learned a lot, and now it's up to me to be the sage and teach other people and help them through difficult times and through a healing process, moving into a growth process.
There's so many different tools out there that are meant to help us heal in general. Which tools were the most useful for you to grow your self-esteem, to increase your confidence level, to really look in the mirror and feel like, you know what, I like what I see. I'm loving what I'm discovering about
Mhm.
myself. What tools specifically were most helpful for you?
That's such a great question. And, there are, like you said, there are a plethora of tools out there, and I've used many. You know, I have worked with a life coach myself who was extraordinary. That was the first step I took. He got me to understand that, a lot of my identity that I believed was me was imposed on me. And then I went to work with a trauma specialist, specifically doing a certified counselor, or I should say, credentialed counselor who specialized in EMDR. And then I found also things like Reiki, acupuncture, and most importantly, a consistent breath practice and somatic work, things like yoga, Tai Chi, time in silence. All of these things help. They may only help a little bit at first, but you start to combine them and they become very powerful and they actually support each other. And that has been an extraordinary experience.
Were you surprised by the growth process that you had gone through? Did you experience growth that you had never had before, maybe prior to your marriage?
Absolutely. I'm astonished at the woman I've become. I didn't know what was inside of me that was just waiting to come out. And, it's interesting. The first life coach I worked with, who I mentioned before, I worked with him in 2015. One of the things he said to me is, Ellen, we're just beginning to scratch the surface of your potential. And I think everybody has that. You just have to be willing to heal, be committed to the healing process. And that naturally, in my experience, has transformed into a growth and self exploration process, which is exciting.
Speaking of excitement, what was the most exciting part of your healing? Because sometimes, well, I shouldn't say sometimes, many times the
Mm-hmm.
healing process means we're going through some growing pains. It's not meant to feel cozy or comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
but it really truly feels uncomfortable, squirmy in all sense of the phrase. What was the most exciting part of the healing that you discovered that you didn't see beforehand?
That's such a great question. You know, I think the biggest thing, and this is something I've learned recently, is that when you're truly thriving, you are in your power, you're empowered, you can stand in your truth at that given moment because we're always changing and evolving, and you can put your boundaries up and be an empathetic, kind person, and your boundaries are up and they are not negotiable. And you do not feel the need to apologize for putting those boundaries up. I think that has been probably the most powerful thing that I have learned.
What does the word empowered mean to you?
It means I own my life and I can say no, and I can still be a kind, empathetic person who can support other people through their journey.
And
But I,
your professional breakthrough includes stepping into the role of certified life coach.
yeah,
When you did that, what became your goal? And what did you learn about yourself stepping into this professional role that showed itself to you as you in real time as things were happening?
um, I think the biggest thing, excuse me, is I realized there were some things that I was really, really good at. And I had never thought of myself as having talents or being really good at something. And I, that is one of my purposes here. It's one of the reasons I exist. And I bring that to the table with each client. I'm able to see their patterns. I'm able to see where they're struggling. And I hold the mirror up to them so they can see it themselves. Like I said before, it's so hard to see what's going on with yourself because you're in it. And some people call this the shadow, or they call it shadow work. And there are other names for that as well.
Do you think that the voice of a woman, do you find that it changes as we get older, or do you find that there's a choice to redefine it? Do you believe that as we age that just our voice naturally grows, or do you feel like it's a level of discovery?
I think it actually can be both. I think we naturally evolve through life. That old saying, "With age comes wisdom," and I think that's absolutely true. I mean, the person I was when I was 20 and the person I am now is completely different. But I think that process is as unique as we are as individuals. But there's also a component to that where there's got to be a choice. There's some people who like to pretend they're an ostrich and stick their head in the sand. And that's a choice. They don't want to grow. They don't want to look at different aspects of themselves because it can be scary.
Very true.
But for me, I didn't have a choice. It was a matter of life and death in my mind. And I wasn't going to give up on myself.
I love that. And we've got so much more to cover, especially her book, Disempowered. But first, we're going to take a commercial break. Stay put. We're coming right back.
So in the calm bag, it has GABA, theanine, and taurine. So theanine, which is B1, which is also in our B complex, but it also helps with the stress response levels. It also helps with the neurological transmitters in our brain. Combined with the GABA, and then you add taurine to it. Taurine is a non-essential amino acid in our body, but it's found in our heart, our brain, and our eyes. So in my personal opinion, it's very essential in our lives. But taurine has a calming effect as well. When I was battling all my AFib issues, I was taking high doses of taurine because that would help with my AFib. It would help with the palpitations I was having. And it also helped with the anxiety of having the palpitations because I knew what was going on, and so taurine helps a lot with that as well. So those three together create such a wonderful concoction that really calms people down.
Introducing Launchpad, the perfect partner to help you launch your dream project to the world. We know that time is of the essence, and we're here to help you make the most of it. With Launchpad, you'll get access to the most advanced digital tools and strategies to take your idea from a mere concept to a fully fledged success. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or a seasoned pro, we have everything you need to make your mark in the world. Launchpad, your ultimate launch partner.
Welcome back, everybody. Today we're talking about Disempowered No More, how to break the cycle of trauma and really embrace healing no matter what that trauma looks like. Our guest today, Ellen Busch, she's a certified life coach. She's also the author of the book Disempowered, which I have a copy right here. And Ellen, I know that we were talking before the break how you stepped into the role of certified life coach. I want to talk about your book Disempowered, and I want to share the copy of the book, the cover shot with our audience if we could. And just bring the attention to the word disempowered, and it's kind of scratched out the DIS at the beginning of the word. Talk a little bit about how you came to this title and what does it mean to you personally?
That's actually a very funny story, and I did not come up with it. My best friend came up with it. I had been struggling to find the title, and I had been skiing with my best friend Sarah in Vail, Colorado, and we quit for the day and we sat down at Garfinkel's, a little pub in Vail Village. And I had this list of different ideas on my phone, and I was asking her for help. And I was just reading through this list, and she kept saying, no, no, no. And then she said, how about disempowered with the DIS crossed out? And I just looked at her and I thought, my God, that's it. And because it fits perfectly, because I started out as a child with the diagnosis of dyslexia and was completely disempowered by the education system and traumatized. And then it is through my journey that I have learned to become empowered.
And when did you write the book? How did you know it was time to write the book and put pen to pad?
So in January 27th, 2013, I escaped from my soon to become ex-husband. I started to put my life back together. I actually was living with my parents at age 43. They took me in and my two dogs and was starting to make some headway. And then December 6th, um, that same year, my mother was in a pedestrian accident and she did not survive. So I kept going. I kept going and continued, grieved my mom's loss. Um, and of course, we did as a family. And then I just kept going. And when I started to look back, I thought, my God, I have survived something pretty intense. And that's when I realized I really had a story to tell. And I started to feel that pit in my stomach of responsibility to share my part of it, to share that story. It took about 5 years to write with the help of a writing coach.
And I love the idea of really sharing what you've gone through so that others can relate. And
Yeah,
what talk to us about the idea behind it. What is the goal for the reader in sharing your story? What are some things that are important for you to convey to the reader so that they're really embracing the message?
sure. Well, there's a couple things. The first thing is that you can heal, you can come back and create a new life for yourself. And you can create the life that you want, not what other people think it should be, but what you want. It takes commitment, it takes time, and you're not going to do it alone. I really made an effort to be vulnerable and authentic as possible because I didn't think it would be believable if it wasn't. And I think it's the authenticity that I put out there that people can relate to, and they can say, I was in a bad marriage or a bad relationship, or I had a diagnosis of dyslexia as a child and it was traumatic. People can really connect with that.
And in your book, I know you go through the different chapters in your life, and you really sit with what trauma means and just navigating through this form. What is your definition of trauma? How do you define trauma, and how do you approach addressing it in a way where you can step away from it, anyone, to
Right,
where they can begin to work through this storm?
sure. So I won't give you the textbook APA trauma definition because that we can all go and look that up. Instead, I'll answer your question kind of based on my experience. Trauma is kind of like a sniper in a ghillie suit hiding in the woods. And it will terrorize you, it will take over your life, it will change your personality, and it will bleed into every single relationship, including the relationship with yourself. And when I realized what I was dealing with, I kind of took the warrior's perspective. I went to war with my trauma because I had such low self-esteem that it made me vulnerable to predators, and I didn't want to be in that position anymore. And I decided that I was going to take control of the trauma and heal it. I'm in control. Unhealed, unresolved trauma, if it's there, will be in control of your life.
One of the different, and I think this is a very riveting book, and I always like to poke around in the book whenever we have authors who share. their message on our show. And the first place I want to poke around is in your chapter Determination, chapter 3. You know, and I'd like to read a quick excerpt from it and then just get your take on it. You wrote, quote, "Being angry became a normal emotion for me. The only way that I could control it was through exercise, and I had learned to take that anger and turn it into determination, drive, and discipline. I made the conscious decision that I was going to prove all those teachers and administrators wrong once and for all. All I had to do was what I always did, work harder than anyone else." And obviously, you're going back to an earlier chapter of your life in school. And can you add context with this revelation of this is how I'm angry, but it's been normalized with where I'm at, and here's what I'm going to do with it.
You know, my parents were amazing supporters, my dad in particular. And when I was a little girl, he and I developed a mantra when I would get frustrated with my homework, burst into tears, throw my homework across the room with the pencil. My mom would calm me down, and my dad would say, "Ellen, you know you can do it. Prove him wrong, one question at a time." And he was teaching me micro goals, and he was teaching me to have a positive internal mantra. And I took those emotions and his advice and I combined those two. And that has become, in some ways, one of the strongest tools that I have in my life. Now, it's no longer based on anger. It is now based on purpose.
Do you feel like if I were to point to the metaphor, a frog in a boiling pot of water, would you say that what you've gone through to work through the trauma was similar to that analogy?
Can we rephrase the question a little bit? I'm not sure how to, yeah.
So the analogy of, I guess what comes to my mind is
Okay.
the metaphor frog in a boiling pot of water. And for viewers who may not be familiar with it, if we were to take a frog, put it in a boiling pot of water, immediately it would just jump out. It just would be a reflex response.
Yes. Yeah.
But if it were a pot of room temperature water and we were slowly beginning to add the temperature, and it would be very nonchalant that the frog would not notice.
Mm-hmm.
And even to the point where if the temperature were to gradually be raised to the point where the frog still doesn't notice, but that inevitably that would do him or her in. And would you say that your journey is similar to that the working through what you have to
I think, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, to break through the cycle?
So I think you just described my marriage and a marriage to a narcissist. Really. I mean, that's a great description. I had never put those 2 points together. And I think that morning in December when I woke up with my subconscious screaming at me, it was my subconscious screaming at me, "You're in a boiling pot of water, and you need to get out, and you need to get out now, and you need to ask for help." And I think that's a really important thing for people to remember. You don't have to do this alone. And you know what? You're probably not going to be able to do it alone. It's okay to ask for help. You're going to need to ask for help.
You know, and in poking through, I want to skip ahead to chapter 19, where you talk about, the title of it is From Prey to Sheepdog. You talk about it being September of 2020, being in Encinitas, California. You talked about a coach in particular who was working in naval special warfare and special operations. And you talk about, it says here, and I'd like to quote you again, where you said that Coach Rob was standing behind me and he said, quote, "Ellen, place your left hand on your holstered firearm and your right hand on your chest," end quote, "facing downrange and without turning my body or moving my feet. I followed his instructions." Quote, "Now I want you to push the release button on the holster, but don't remove it," end quote. And then you write, I moved only my hand and my fingers on the release button and the holster. The rest of my body was still. You go on to talk about some of the physiological response that you were experiencing in that moment, and including chest tightened, heart rate accelerated. You and then you talked about his instructions were professional, calm, and patient. And he says, quote, Ellen, I now want you to bring your right hand to the firearm, wrap it around the front of your hand and not beneath. Then as you bring it up in front of your chest, keep the gun pointed downrange and keep your finger off the trigger. This is called high ready. Can you talk a little bit more about what happened after that?
Sure. So, well, I have to say that Rob actually helped me with this chapter. So he gave me a little bit of input on it. And he also is a retired Navy SEAL. He served over 20 years. So he's pretty incredible coach, and it was a privilege to work with him. The funny thing is one of the things he told me to do is don't put your finger on the trigger. And of course, I put my finger on the trigger. But he was very calm and professional and said, Ellen, take your finger off the trigger. But, but I think what's really important here is that I was very afraid of handling a firearm. My father wanted me to know how to properly, safely handle a firearm, just because that's a good thing to know how to do. And I was frightened. I was really frightened being on that firing range. And keeping myself safe meant following Coach Rob's instructions, staying glued to him at the hip because I thought that was the safest place to be. And then also when I got through it, I was really proud of myself because it was about facing fear. And again, I did it with help, an incredibly qualified professional by my side, one-on-one. And I faced my fear. And I think the ability to face your fear will make all the difference in the world, especially if it's about healing from trauma.
You bring up a really strong point that I think that it seems as though there's a chunk of society that often misses that we sometimes have that fear factor.
Right.
As part of our lives where we'll move in to avoid something, or because we are, we've got our mind racing, oh, what's going to happen. But obviously from your experience, it's clear that you had the right support by you and that you trusted the process, even though you had not properly handled a firearm prior to, from what I'm gathering.
Correct.
And would you say, what is the tie-in that keeps people from moving past their fears? What is the one missing link that needs to be in place for them to move forward in an area that they've not moved before?
I think it's facing the unknown. If people, I think, in general, will stay where they are because they know it. The devil let you know is better, that phrase. And especially with trauma, there's a lot of self-examination when you're going through the healing process. And a lot of people are afraid to take a look at themselves. They're afraid of what they might find if they look inside. I just had decided that I was not going to let trauma win, and I was not going to repeat the same traumas. So I was willing to do whatever it took.
So it was a decision that you made.
Yes, it was absolutely a very conscious decision because I felt my life was at stake. If I ended up repeating the same mistakes again, I might not survive the next time. I got lucky to get out the first time. And that's backed up by government statistics. In our country, 3 women and 1 man are murdered every day in the United States from being in an intimate partner relationship.
And that's pretty scary, but obviously it sheds light on something that's important to talk about. Before we go to our next break, my question to you is, what was the most surprising thing you discovered about yourself when you wrote this book?
A very specific moment that I had with my publisher when I was finally holding it in my hand. I had over 200 pages of proof that I beat everybody. I beat the naysayers, I beat the bullies, I beat my ex-husband, I beat the teachers, the school system, the education system. I won. And I sent Jess Buchanan, my publisher, a 2-word email. I won. She emailed me back and she said, yeah, you did. But that was the first time I was able to internalize that.
The book is called Disempowered. It's a riveting journey of growth, healing and growth, and just really navigating through trauma. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Stay put. We got more coming.
Welcome to Renew Laser and Skincare, where beauty meets technology. From laser hair removal and anti-aging treatments to facial sculpting, acne care, and injectables, our expert team helps you look and feel your best with customized, results-driven care. Located in Littleton, Colorado, we offer a comfortable, welcoming space and cutting-edge treatments tailored just for you. Visit renewlaserandskincare.com to book your transformation today. Renew Laser and Skincare, where confidence begins.
Hello, ambitious achievers. Welcome back to Fit Bites with Adriana. Today, we're exploring how improving our health can lead to a thriving professional life. So let's dive in. First up, prioritize sleep. A well-rested mind is more focused, creative, and productive. Aim for 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep to ensure you're ready to tackle the day's challenges. Next, let's talk about nutrition. Fuel your body with balanced meals that include lean proteins, whole grains, and plenty of fruits and vegetables. Eating well not only boosts energy levels, but also improves concentration and decision-making skills. Now, don't forget about hydration. Staying hydrated keeps your mind sharp and helps you stay alert throughout the day. And keep that water bottle near you at your desk and aim for at least 8 glasses a day. Now, on to exercise. Regular physical activity increases blood flow to the brain, enhancing cognitive function and reducing stress. Even a quick walk during lunch can make a big difference. And speaking of stress, managing it is key. Incorporating stress-reducing techniques like deep breathing, meditation, or yoga into your routine. A calm mind is more capable of handling work pressures. And lastly, take breaks. Short breaks throughout the day can prevent burnout and boost creativity. Step away from your desk, stretch, or do a quick mindfulness exercise. Now, by taking care of our health, we set ourselves up for success in our professional lives. So let's commit to these habits and watch our careers soar. Now, stay tuned for more Fit Bites, and here's to a healthier, more prosperous you. Welcome back, everybody. We are spending quality time with our guest today, Ellen Busch. She's a certified life coach. She is also the author of the book Disempowered. And Ellen, I know we did a deeper dive just now before the break into some important components of your book. Who needs to read this book right now? Who needs this message right now?
I really think it's for anybody who is struggling. There's so many different points I dive into. It's not just for a woman who's been in an abusive relationship or a man. There's a lot of narcissistic women out there as well. Or for, somebody who is dyslexic or has a dyslexic child. It's about, the overall arc is about overcoming trauma and also shedding the identities or parts of our identities that were actually imposed on us. And those are not authentic. And by doing that deep dive into ourselves and with the appropriate support, you can really take a journey of self-discovery and find out who you really are. And that's really exciting. And when you do that, you are completely empowered. This just happens to be my journey from being disempowered to becoming empowered. Everybody's story is going to be a little bit different, because we're all unique and our journeys are all unique.
Now, of course, you're not only just helping the reader, there's other different ways in which you're helping those in your role as a certified life coach.
Mhm.
How are you helping others really navigate through the world? Which groups are you connected with and focused on just helping to embrace that growth?
And like I mentioned, the dyslexic community, talking with parents and helping them to understand what their children are experiencing. And then even the grown adults who are now looking back and saying, oh, that's why that happened. Um, and then, anybody who's experienced trauma, whether it be from, an abusive relationship, but just any kind of trauma, I think where the mental health community is really missing the mark is we survive something and then we get stuck. And we don't know how to move into the thriving and recreate our life. So I also work with people who are trying to, develop a career path. Young people who are just coming out of college. What do I want to do? And that's more in the general life coaching arena. But the curriculum that I use through the Unbeatable Mind program is comprehensive.
So the Unbeatable Mind program is one program that you have that you work with those, and then but you have the other program and it works, and obviously it's geared towards the dyslexic community. Is that right?
Yes. Well, what I do is I pull the tools from the Unbeatable Mind program into those populations. So I'm able, because it is so comprehensive, those tools are very easily crossed over into those populations. And because I've experienced what it's like to grow up as a dyslexic person, because I have the personal experience of being in an abusive, narcissistic relationship, I bring that into the coaching as well. I have tremendous empathy and I know what you're going through.
Now, is it in the group segment or is it one-on-one? What does that look like?
Sure. Right now it's one-on-one. I would like to develop some group coaching situations, and I'm working on that. And then also I've just booked my first public speaking opportunity, which will be here in Boulder in November.
Fantastic. And so, and in that group, what industry is that, and where are you looking to lend your voice?
With the speaking engagement that we're setting up for in Boulder, that's going to be the moving from survivor to thriver is the name of that. And again, it's that movement of first taking on and committing to the healing process, and then moving through to the point where you can stand in your truth and be comfortable with that. And I will not be the only one on stage. We have two other people who will be on stage. I don't have permission yet to, but they are good. They're pretty extraordinary people. So will be in the spiritual healing realm, and then another person who will be a credentialed trauma specialist.
And now I'm assuming this information is on your website. If we can pull your website up so that our viewing audience can see. Can you talk a little bit about what to expect if someone gets on your website?
Sure. So there's a lot of information about my background, about the different coaching packages, if you will, that I offer. But just know that we can customize something. I'm always happy to work with somebody as much as they need me. I'm not going to say, no, we're done. And then information about the book.
And so this will be obviously story developing. There's a lot of, as events are coming up through the course of the rest of this year, you'll be updating, of course.
Yes, as things come. And then I occasionally will do book signings. I'm a member of the Colorado Authors League, and we do them as groups of authors. And we're working to schedule some more of those events. But nothing is on the calendar as of yet.
Okay. Well, we are going to take a quick commercial break. We are coming right back. Stay right there. Welcome back, everybody. Our guest today, Ellen Busch, certified life coach, author of the book Disempowered, a riveting story of how to navigate through trauma and embrace the healing that can elevate growth to a new level. Ellen, where can we find you in the social media space?
Sure. So I am on Instagram at ebush, Ellen Busch 1500, and then Facebook, of course.
And then also, those aren't the only two, right? Is there anywhere else that we can find you?
And also on LinkedIn. You can just find me by using my full name. And it's hard to miss me with the red hair. So, but I try and keep it to just those few because it's a lot to manage otherwise. So, yeah.
And where can viewers find your book?
Sure. So it is on Audible as well as Amazon. And, I realized when the book came out that a lot of my readers are dyslexic. And a lot of dyslexic readers struggle. So I went ahead and, with the help of a company that does audiobooks, we created the Audible version. So it is there. And it's also, so Amazon, Audible, and then also barnesandnoble.com. And then some of the local bookstores here in Colorado also carry it. They support local authors.
One last question. What kind of legacy do you wish to leave in the world?
The legacy I want to leave is that a lot of times what we believe about ourselves is not necessarily true, and ideas can be imposed on you. And to really take a deep dive, don't be afraid. Explore who you are. Don't be afraid to be authentic. People will see it. They will respond to it, and the world will respond to it when you are authentic. And don't forget to breathe.
Breathing is good in so many ways. It's a very powerful message, and Ellen, it's been great to have you on our show. Thank you so much for sharing your information, your book, and then also, of course, just all the knowledge that you have. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, and for our viewers, of course, we want to give a quick shout out. Thank you to our sponsors for their support. We would love the fact that they are behind our show: Biomed Mobile IV, Dapper No Code, Launchpad, Renew Laser and Skincare, and Synergize Fitness. And of course, we're also on the web, so you can find our website, thehealthrevolutiontv.com. There you can find out important information about our newsletter. You can also find out, or you can share with us any show episode ideas you'd love for us to have. Upper left-hand corner of your screen, you'll find our QR code. If that's easier for you to grab, feel free to do so that way. And of course, every Tuesday and Thursday, you can find us on the Arion TV channel on E360 TV, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. That's all the time that we have. Until next time, take care of yourselves. We will see you soon.